You look at like the first quarter of this year, January, February, March, I feel like those are not typically big growth periods for a lot of companies. And we've seen probably like 50% growth during the last 3 months just from knocking. We've done Facebook advertising and that's been good for us. And we've had like a handful of people call in because they've like seen the truck or because they see our website, but almost 100% of our growth is from getting out there on the doors.
Welcome back inside of Trash Chatter. I'm your host, Victoria Conway, alongside Brandon and Brantley from Bin Gator out of Orlando, Florida. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Victoria.
Oh yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely. No, thank you guys for making some time. I mean, you told me off camera, you both have 4 kids, you have a business, so you guys are really busy. So appreciate taking some time. And before we get into some of the details on your operation, I want to take you back to a little bit over a year ago, which is when you guys placed your order for your SB4. How'd you guys stumble into bin cleaning? Maybe share a little bit about the background between you two and how you guys became friends and then business partners.
Okay, so it all started about 10 years ago. So Brandon and I, we met in college, and we just like loved the idea of entrepreneurship and figuring out ways to make money on our own. And so we actually started a window washing company together, and we actually loved that. It was great. Then after we did that, we kind of went our separate ways, and he went and did sales, and then I went and did door-to-door sales for a pest control company. So I was just obsessed with finding out ways to basically find ways to get recurring revenue. And just recently, about what year? When did we start talking about it, Brandon?
Well,
Like a year and a half ago.
before you moved to Orlando, I know one of the reasons you wanted to move to Orlando was because you felt like it was a better market to start a business. And I feel like it was about that time when you guys were like, "Hey, we think we're going to move from Idaho to Orlando." I think that's when we started talking about it. And we had a few different ideas, but then I remember one day you called me up. You're like, "Dude, I just found the coolest business idea." Well, I think you may have found the podcast or something. But anyways, you found sparkling bins and trash bin cleaning, and you were telling me all about it. And actually, I have a brother-in-law who works for a trash bin cleaning company here in the Boise area where I live. And so I was already a little bit familiar with it, already a little intrigued. But yeah, that's really the origin story. And then here we are now.
That's right.
I know, I think it's such a cool tidbit that you moved to Orlando, and moving obviously is already hectic, and you're like, you know what? I want to start a new business. And then you and Brandon are working together in 2 different states. Maybe talk to us a little bit about the Orlando market and what was so enticing to you about starting a company and then starting a company that a lot of people still don't know what trash bin cleaning is. So that's really the hurdle to get into it.
Yeah, I love the Orlando market for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's warm year round. And so I knew that worst case scenario, in the middle of January, I could go clean some trash bins and go knock on some doors and build up some accounts that way. It's a little bit harder when you've got 4 feet of snow on the ground and you're like, hey, can I come out once a month and clean your trash bin? But so that's why I liked Orlando. And then also just like it's a way bigger city than where I lived before. I lived in Rexburg, Idaho before. And so there's like 20,000 people there, and I'm sure he'd be successful there, but to grow and scale it the way we want to, we just wanted to do it in a bigger city. So that's kind of why we picked Orlando. And little did I know that maggots were a thing over here. I had no idea. Like I remember we were knocking doors our very first day. We picked up the truck from Miami, drove it back all the way to Orlando, which I know some people drive it to like California. We drove it only 3.5 hours. We immediately started knocking doors, and someone's like, "Oh my gosh, I get maggots so bad." And we're like, "Oh, okay, that's a thing we can put in our pitch." And sure enough, we took care of the maggots really well. So that was a huge selling point that I wasn't expecting about Orlando.
I was actually telling Brandon off camera before you joined us that, for us, my whole life, I've heard about maggots basically because that was like one of the first things we ever discovered when we moved to Florida back in 2006. And we had a prospect come out from California last week, and we're at dinner, and for like 2 hours, we're just dropping the word maggot. And then finally they said, can we ask, like, what is that? Is that like a Florida thing? So we didn't really know that it was just like a Florida thing. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, we've been talking about this gross little bug for the last 2 hours. We're like, okay, maybe you can't put that in your pitches, but I'm sure they still smell dirty. But the maggots, I mean, that's some of the best content that you can get. So Florida allows you to have that. And you said earlier, Brantley, about door to door. And I wanted to ask if that's something you guys incorporate into your marketing and your advertising, because I've had a couple folks join the podcast that have had success with it. So I want to pick your brain a little bit on what you guys have seen from that strategy.
Sure. Yeah, Brandon, do you want me to talk about it a little bit? And then
Yeah, you go for it, and I'll add in my color commentary.
Sure. Yeah. So both Brandon and I, we sold pest control during the summers when we were in college, and then I actually kept doing that after college. And so we kind of had that background. And so one of the main reasons we picked this industry and starting this company was because we knew that we could basically force growth by knocking doors. And so we found that if you're willing to put your head down and knock hundreds and thousands of doors and dedicate large portions of your day to knocking doors, that you can put on a lot of accounts. But yeah, that's basically it. Brandon, what would you add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one unique thing about our business model is that we really rely on that, for better or worse. But I mean, like, shoot, you look at like the first quarter of this year, January, February, March. I feel like those are not typically big growth periods for a lot of companies, and we've seen, I don't know, probably like 50% growth during the last 3 months. And just from knocking, we've done Facebook advertising, and that's been good for us. And we've had like a handful of people call in because they've like seen the truck or because they see our website, but almost 100% of our growth is from getting out there on the doors. I feel like it's great because, yeah, we can go just bring it to the people, and it's a great way to get people to sign up. We also have found, there's drawbacks to it as well. Like, you're rather than people reaching out thinking themselves, like having the idea themselves, like, hey, I want this, you're coming to them and kind of talking them into it. And so we've found that retention maybe is a little bit harder with those kinds of customers. We've like looked at the analytics on customers that have called into us versus customers that we've knocked on their door, and retention is definitely higher for the ones that reach out to us. But that's just part of, we're just learning how to manage that and get our customer retention higher now.
When you guys are knocking doors, do you have the truck with you? Is it just one of you? Is it the driver? What does that normally look like?
Most of the time it's without the truck there. Like ideally, if you can have the truck in the background, that's great. But most of the time it's just like, hey, my name's Brantley. I'm with Bin Gator. I'm sending the truck down the street on Thursday this week. And if you want, I'm doing a huge discount and I'm getting everyone done for half of what I typically charge. Just something along those lines. Usually the truck is not there though.
No, that means you're really good at what you do then. Because I feel like if they see the truck, right, maybe it'll entice them a little bit more. But the fact that you guys are getting people to sign up with just what you're presenting, and I think offering a discount definitely helps. And like you said, if you're in the area, maybe you were, maybe you aren't, but it definitely can entice people to want to sign up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What was the process like for hiring a driver? Because you guys are owners, but you're not on the trucks. So what's that process like? How'd you find your driver? Have you had the same one for the year? Because I know that's something we get a lot of conversations about. How has that process been for you guys?
Well, we kind of lucked out in that area because that was definitely one of the questions that we had starting this up, because we knew, like, obviously I live in a different state, so I can't go and drive the truck. I also work full time, so like I wasn't an option. Brantley, we feel like his skill set is more towards growth and building the company and adding more accounts. And so that was definitely a big question that we had of how are we going to actually service these accounts. And so we had a few ideas, but then Brantley was like, oh, hey, I've got this cousin who's looking for new work. He had background working like with mechanical stuff, so like he's very good mechanically. He knows like when we have issues with the truck, he's very good at finding a solution. Um, you know, we haven't really had like I don't know if we've ever had like there's been times where we've needed to replace a part, but I don't think we've ever had like a full down day or anything like that, right, Brinley? Um,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
He's a
yeah.
lifesaver.
So and
Yeah.
he was wanting to move out to Florida anyway, so it was just a match made in heaven. Dustin's been great, and he's been our driver this whole time, and um, yeah, but we know that we're going to have to hire a new driver soon. So if you know of anybody,
Us who we have up in the Orlando area, but it's always great when it works out that somebody obviously you can trust, reliable, and the mechanically inclined is such a big like obviously sometimes you can't find somebody, but I mean even when David talks to people, our shop manager, you can tell who has mechanical background and who from the beginning is like, I am lost. I'm like, it's just the gauge, it's the gauge, just replace it. You're good. Keep rolling around. So it's awesome that he has that background.
Definitely. I'm the lost guy,
same.
and Dustin is the guy that's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, all right, thanks, David. Sweet, yeah, I'll get that taken care of." And then I'm like, "What it? Wait, oh, you got it? Okay, you take care
Like
of
I'm
it."
gonna go keep knocking the doors, keep it chugging along.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Once again, we're here inside of Trash Chatter, joined by Brandon and Brantley Bingater out of Orlando, Florida. They've been in business for a year and experiencing some growth. We heard them talk a little bit about their door to door success, especially in the first quarter of 2025. And want to ask you guys, how would you recap your first year in business? I know the two of you, when you approached it, you know, it'd be a long term investment, which I think having those expectations helps a lot. But obviously, there's certain milestones you want to hit, or maybe areas you guys can improve upon. How would you recap your first year in business?
It's definitely come with some challenges for sure. Like, I think when we first started it, we're like, "Oh, people we'll sign up 10, 20 people a day, no problem." On monthly recurring models. But I think it was a little bit harder to pick up accounts than we were expecting. But not that like it didn't like it wasn't that disheartening because we are like, all right, well, I guess we just have to work a little bit harder and we'll grow a little bit slower. Um, but other than that, like it was pretty much what we expected from my perspective. But I don't know what would you add, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a few different ventures together, Brantley, and we've also done stuff on our own. I think just a good rule of thumb or expectation to have is that things are always going to be harder and more expensive than you expect. I mean, you could have the best product or service in the world and you could be offering it for free. You still got to go out there and sell it. There are going to be challenges, and we knew going into it. I think something that we said over and over again was you don't know what you don't know. We tried to learn as much as we could before getting into this, but of course there were just things that came up that we didn't foresee. One of those being like, yeah, it's obviously going to be a challenge to get new people to sign up. I think another challenge that we ran into is I think a lot of other people that go into this line of business, a lot of them kind of start a little bit smaller than we did, where they go out, maybe they get a trailer, maybe they get a truck. We have an SB4, so maybe they get an SB4, but I feel like a lot of times people that are starting it, like they're the driver themselves, and they're kind of, they don't really have a payroll. We started off with a payroll. We started off with a driver. We hired a sales guy. So like expenses were high from the get-go. And so yeah, that's been a challenge to deal with that I think might be unique to people who are doing it like us.
I would say because we have, I mean, the way I look at it, it's probably about 60, maybe 70% owner operator. So you're right, that takes out a complete chunk of who you're paying and responsible for. So you guys definitely went at it at a higher level investment. Not that we haven't had that before, but I'm sure to recoup some of that, it's going to take longer than if you guys weren't paying yourselves and you're out there just cleaning bins. I know maybe it was a month or two ago, you guys did a call with John just talking about HOAs and maybe trying to target them. What's your experience been with homeowner associations, and what are some of your goals potentially for them this season?
We'd love to pick some up. We haven't put enough time towards it to really speak on that, to be honest. We're trying to get our strategy down, and we've definitely made some calls, but there's a lot of gatekeepers out there. There's a lot of people that just don't want to listen. They don't even want to entertain the idea. But we just know it takes one. So like even if you have to call 100 HOAs and finally you get one deal, it's worth it. And then that hopefully that can just keep snowballing into more
Yeah,
HOAs.
and part of the thing there is like, we get so many new customers through door to door. It's kind of hard to take focus off of that. Like we know that if we land an HOA or a big trash hauler or something, we know that'll be an amazing long-term partnership that will be worth, who knows how many hundreds of customers that we get from door to door. But it's hard to turn away from that immediate, like we know, okay, if we spend a full day knocking, we'll get X number of new accounts each day. So it's hard to pivot from that, but that is definitely something that we want to get into.
Yes, it's like you don't want to use the word guarantee with the knocking, but at least you know that returns a lot quicker than if the HOA picks up. So I'm glad you guys shared that because we talked to a lot of people who call me and our sales team, and they're like, "I got HOAs lined up." I'm like, "If you do, I would love to see it in fruition because it's a different ball game when you're actually out there and just trying to get somebody on the phone is definitely a battle."
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now, obviously, with the truck, you guys can do pressure washing. Do you stay away from that? Are you guys predominantly just focusing on trash bins? And have you dabbled at all with commercial?
I've not dabbled. 100% just monthly. We throw in a few one-time cleans here and there, but we try to make our one-time clean price just like really high where people are really enticed to do the monthly.
Honestly, I'm surprised
So
anybody ever
that's
does a
100%
one-time
it.
clean with us, to be honest.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we had a lady this morning, right, Brandley, that she wanted to do a one-time clean. We're like, okay, here it is, but she's like, actually, I think it makes more sense to do the monthly. So
Well, that's the strategy, right? Make the price point so high that it's kind of a no-brainer. Are you guys predominantly monthly, or do you have any quarterlies in there? What does your breakdown roughly look like?
It's all monthly.
I like that. That's all. I mean, that's honestly, we're about 80% monthly. So it's obviously more times you're driving in those neighborhoods and those cleans are so much faster. How do you guys do your billing? Like, do you charge them for 3 months at a time after you clean the bin? What does that look like?
so we like it charges as soon as they sign up for the first clean, and then it's billed after we mark it complete in My Route Pro after each time after that.
I know that's a hot topic on the Facebook
Yeah.
in the Facebook group. Everyone's like, "No, you gotta bill them 3 months in advance. I'm not showing up until they pay," which is great, and I can definitely see us moving towards that because we have had higher uncollectibles than we were expecting, and so I can see us making the change. But right now, we're just so focused on growing that it's like some of those changes can take place later, I think.
Those threads can get very heated at times, and that's why I always like to go back to the
I love
it's
it.
like whatever works for you. You're busy and it's working, and maybe you'll change it. Some people are. I mean, it's great. People care a lot, and people want. I think a lot of it comes from a place of like, I made this mistake and it hurt me, so I don't want this to happen to somebody else. But they definitely get animated in some regards. Like, yeah, we do every 3 months, but we are probably moving towards we might be changing that just because we are afraid maybe it's deterring people from signing up. So there's different areas, different folks, and that's why it all works how it should be for companies in all different areas. I know you guys mentioned potentially needing another driver. Is it something you guys are hoping to add another truck into your fleet, or is that more down the road into 2026? What does this year kind of look like for you guys?
Yeah, I would say we'd shoot for later this year, if not early 2026. I think that would be kind of the goal there. But what are your thoughts, Brandon?
Yeah, I think I don't know, we're always looking at the numbers and talking strategy. I mean, just ask our wives how how much we're on the phone with each other. Um, yeah, I think that's where our projections are, but I believe that there's a realistic shot that we might be needing help with another truck come like in the next few months, just based off of the growth trends we've been seeing.
I was gonna say, in part of the question mark of when we're gonna get a new truck, we want to see what one truck can fit. So we want to see if we can push the limits with that first truck, and and then we can decide with all the information when we're going to get our second truck. Because I don't know if we're going to be able to fit 800 accounts or 1,200. People are saying 1,200, 1,600. I would love to fit
It'd
1,600
be a
accounts.
game
Oh my
changer.
gosh. I'd love to fit 1,200. But if we could even fit 1,000 monthly accounts, then I'm stoked. Then 1,000 would be fantastic.
Definitely. And I think, the trash pickup, where you're cleaning these bins, all that plays into, which is why I think you get such a wide range. I'm with you. If you get 1,600, tell me, because that's a pretty cool score. I'm like 800 to 1,000, depending, just based on, at least for our routes, but that's us down here in Miami, Florida. So it can vary throughout the country. But I think it's a good thing if you can at least have some of those conversations and strive for those goals, especially with how many monthly you have. That means those clean times have to be quick. And that's why for such a long time we pushed for it strongly. Like now we do monthly, quarterly, and one-timers. But that monthly, John Michael out of Germ Bust My Bins, he did a lot of predominantly monthly, and he just said it yielded the best results for him. So even that's always a highly debated topic. Like, what's the offer? I always go with what are people signing up for is the one I would go with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we've been talking recently. I think we want to open it up more to, be more open to other service options. But yeah, I think one other advantage that maybe we have is as opposed to like doing mailers or like Facebook ads or things
Don't
like
get me
that.
started on mailers.
Yeah, we had a bad experience. We can really you can pinpoint where you want to be marketing to with those channels. But if you're going door to door, you can really pinpoint like, hey, I want more customers in this neighborhood on these streets. And so I think that's a big advantage for us for making our routes really tight. Is just being able to choose exactly where we want our customers at. And then so there's that, but then another challenge that we have in Orlando, I don't know if any other market has this. We did not know about this before we got into it. But there are a lot of places in the Orlando area where they'll have like trash day on Monday and then recycle day on Thursday. You can't get both those bins at the same time. We've tried and people hate it and it doesn't work. And the thing, like there's so many different trash pickup schedules that we're dealing with. So that, I don't know, there's a lot of things that play into that and trying to figure out the best way to optimize all that to get the most accounts on one truck.
Well, I think it might be a Florida thing. I know that's something we go with. So we're always like, we're going back out there this week. And it's like, you have to, there's no way around it. And then obviously, hopefully you have enough of volume there. So I think that ties into pinpointing where you want to be. Have you guys ever gotten to the position where people are trying to sign up outside your area and you're having to turn them away? Or for the most part, is it pretty concentrated?
Every now and then. And I think we've been pretty disciplined on keeping our service area pretty tight. But I think there's one customer that we're like, hey, let's just go expand up here, and then we'll start putting customers around them. And then I think we kind of regret that a little bit because it's like another 15 minutes away from the closest customer, and we haven't been able to build up that area enough yet. So right now it's just kind of a thorn in the side. But hopefully over time that it won't be as bad.
Definitely. And hopefully if that person can get their neighbors. That's what we normally, back in the day, we used to tell people, we'll come if you get 10 people signed up. And there would be some people really trying because they wanted their bins cleaned so badly.
Wow.
So we've told them, like,
That's
if you
awesome.
can get a certain amount or promise a certain amount of accounts, we'll make our way over there, especially once people see that before and after. I know you guys mentioned earlier about the retention that you feel like folks that you're knocking on their doors might not be staying on as much, at least when it comes to people signing up. Do you feel like the retention rate is strong for those that have looked for you guys and the ones that went on their own accord to find BinGator and get their bins cleaned?
Yeah, we've run the analytics on that, and it's pretty staggering between the two.
Yeah, well, it's a good sign, at least in terms of same thing that tracks for us down here is people that find us. People like the service. And that's what I tell clients when they're like, should I get into this business? And I'm like, well, first, there's a lot of different things to sort out, just like you touched on earlier. Trash pickup. That can be a whole different ballgame depending on when it's picked up, the frequency. But people do like the service. It's just getting out in front of them. And, before I let you guys go, I know you're 1 year into the business and appreciate you guys making some time. Wanted to ask if you would share any advice for someone who's deciding, is this industry the right fit for them?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this exact advice on Trash Chatter, I'm pretty sure. But just like just make sure you know you're not gonna sit there and start making all this money right away. It's gonna be a long-term play, and make sure you have way more money either saved up or access to more money than you think. Um, and it's gonna be a long-term play.
Yeah, I would add to that just, I mean, yeah, I've also heard this on Trash Chatter. If you treat this like a part-time job, then you're gonna have part-time results. Which is ironic because I do treat it like a part-time job because I work full-time doing
You
it.
need
It's
to
like,
pay bills.
but the advantage is, I think the flip side of that is I have Brantley and we have a team that's working with us, and yeah, we feel like the long-term reward here that there's a really nice pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but we also understand that it's going to take a lot of work and sacrifice on our part as it already has, and we're in it for the long haul.
No, I'm glad you guys shared that advice because there's some videos, some TikToks out there that say you're gonna make 30 grand in a week or in a month, and it's a little astonishing. So I want everyone to know that that's just not the case. If it was, we'd all quit our jobs and clean trash bins. But it definitely takes a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hard work. It's rewarding, but it does take from those aspects. So I appreciate your guys' transparency, all the advice you shared. It's awesome to see you guys passionate about the industry and joining us today, sharing your insight. We really appreciate it. And we hope to have you guys on again soon. Brandon and Brantley, Bin Gator out of Orlando, Florida. If you're in the Orlando market, make sure you sign up, reach out to them to get your trash bins cleaned. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for tuning in to Trash Chatter. We release one new episode every month. It's on the second or third Monday of every month. We're trying to get that narrowed down, but check it out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate all the feedback. Please comment on some topics and discussions you'd like to hear more about. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.